pacing on each end.
Yeah. The faster is not always better.
Right,
All right.
exactly.
Hello,
So,
everybody.
Hello, everyone.
Welcome to podcast number
96. Yes.
96. You know what 96 is reversed, though?
Yes, I am well aware. Maybe that's why Windows skipped that one,
Oh, possibly.
Big
like
brain.
The memers at Microsoft thinking ahead. Yeah. They're just like
There was a part of me that really wanted to just wear the Ahegao shirt because talking about pacing and whatnot and how our thoughts have changed. Because we used to think that faster was better.
We did.
We
did.
And now
we are redeemed. We are changed men.
Both are good.
Yes.
Fast.
Yes.
And slow.
Right.
Exactly. That is our TED Talk. The podcast is over. Thank you so much for coming.
Nefertito, that's so funny. That's so funny that you say that, because the evolution of the weird phrases that I've used throughout this channel's history has been quite a ride. There used to be that used to be like one of the things. There was in a manner of speaking, well, here's the thing. Like, yeah, that's the one that's more recent.
Yeah,
that's the recent one. Yeah.
What was the other one?
Well, particularly was the worst one. Like way back in the day.
Oh man,
we've coined the for all intensive purposes. That's another fun one.
No,
welcome to the Tide Podcast.
Jacob.
Of the ultimate frisbee fanatic and the armor addict. Wow, Emju, you should be the head of our marketing department.
Yeah, I mean that's not that inaccurate. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You should have. You know it. Yeah, for sure. And then you watched Saint Seiya Netflix and learned fast pacing can be disastrous. Wait, what even is that? I don't even know if I want to know what that is.
I've heard the name, like I'm familiar with the name, but the fact that I don't know anything about it and have never heard it recommended, means that probably speaks for itself.
Right. The idea of was a big one. That was a big one for sure. Planning on anything special for podcast 100? I mean,
oh, buddy,
yeah. Oh, buddy, yes. Oh, that was the self hug like prayer one, just like, oh, buddy, Came out a week ago. It's effing terrible.
Wow.
Okay, take your word for it. All right.
Vinland. That will be a fun show when we watch it, because we totally haven't seen the first episode yet.
Yeah, not at all. Yeah. Saying these phrases is one of the reasons we love you so much. Oh,
thank you.
Oh, yes, thank you. Thanks. Wait. Looks at camera. Oh, wow.
Oh, wow. How much is wow?
Wow.
Oh boy. By the way, if any of you got the "how much is wow" reference, you are truly cultured individuals, or you could be part of another faction. I don't know.
That is true. That is true. We have a lot of amazing factions on our Discord. Shout out people on the Discord. Y'all are awesome. And also shout out to our VIP of the week, Ryan H. It's something where we're coming back around talking about the OG VIPs, and Ryan H is the absolutist of mad laddists on Twitch and on the mailbox videos. Ryan, you are a legend, we do not deserve you. No one deserves you.
We really don't.
It's incredible how long you've supported us. So we thank you so much, bro. It means a lot. So.
Okay. So
now we have to take this seriously.
I don't know if I can do that, Kill.
Yes,
because that's a good point. Though. Okay, so I do that.
Let's have our cake and our keikaku and eat it.
Right?
Yeah, exactly. So we have changed. Here's the thing, y'all. If any of you have watched our videos from the beginning, the cringiest of beginnings, the most horrible of beginnings, through the wandering wastelands of so many things here. To where we are now, you notice that our tastes, our opinions, our just everything has evolved. It's changed over the years.
Avatar: The Last Airbender used to be our favorite show. Now it's things like Domestic Girlfriend and Bible Black. I mean, no, we haven't seen that.
Things have become cancerous in certain areas. We're all on our road to degeneracy at our own different rates.
Toothbrushes have been seen.
Toothbrushes have been seen. That's true. And paths have been rot. And
basements have been opened. And
monsters have been unleashed, and shonen have been redeemed.
Yes.
What is life, everyone? Like, what is love? What is anime?
What is anime? Well, anime is trash.
Anime is a life. Like, I mean,
speaking of taste,
it is trash, and it is also life.
No, the emergence read through is not. That's something I'll read eventually on my own time at some point.
Is it better to get a VPN or a TPN? Hey,
well, we actually watched The Promised Neverland.
Oh my!
Think about that. Think about that. Yeah. Like, can you remember when every other
Have you heard of The Promised Neverland? And it's one of my favorite Twitch clips that's ever been made on this channel was just the guys. I think it's one. It's really good.
I don't think they've heard of that one.
I don't think they've heard of it either.
It is amazing. Yeah.
In fact, spoiler alert, we might be talking about that next podcast. But for this podcast, we're talking about pacing.
Yes.
And specifically we're gonna be keep exactly like that. Yeah. Pacing in regards to anime and how over the couple of years it's been since the channel started, we've watched shows of varying variety. Yes, I did use those words together. And not just has our taste in anime changed, but also I would say how we approach anime, not just as an entertainment medium, but also something where when we kind of determine in our heads what is an anime that's like good, like something that not on an objective level or on a critic's level, but just in what we appreciate and what we get out of it. There have been shows that we've watched that have had like lightning fast pacing, like incredibly fast, tight, just let's go pacing.
And sometimes that's a great thing, like with The Promised Neverland, Bakano, Madoka Magica. Sometimes that's a different sort of thing, like with Domestic Girlfriend, and that's why you should read the manga. But there are all kinds of shows and stories under the sun, and we have come to appreciate so many of them that we never would have originally. Like Kill la Kill. I remember when I thought I would never like Kill la Kill. Yeah, exactly, like Kill la Kill, fast pacing. Yep. I thought that I was like, no, I've seen art of that show. I don't know. And then eventually it's like, you know what? I feel like I could be ready for Kill la Kill.
Yeah, and also like all those shows that have been those small, tight, compact, one core shows that just blew our minds, like Devilman Crybaby, like level pacing, and then
A Place for the
Universe with that like same kind of
just every
like tight,
single episode
exact thing just going on. But then in the same breath, there have also been these wonderful episodic shows that I would say completely redefined what I thought anime could be. Even like if you think about what JoJo's is, if you think about just JoJo's as a show, it is in a league of its own, but we don't give it maybe as much credit as it's due. Like maybe that's something that it's like I'm late to the party, like everyone has been on the JoJo's is a masterpiece, and then it's like it's reversed back around because of the memes, and now everyone's sick of it. It's more of a thing of, yes, JoJo's is all right, but it's overrated because of how popular it is. But I really feel like when you have a show that decides to do the Doctor Who style kind of part reboot kind of thing, sort of and then have an episodic, primarily episodic show for the most part, with linear kind of bits throughout it, I just blows my mind.
The idea of a show that can mosey around, right, and still be incredibly gripping and entertaining, like that was something that I didn't really think was a thing as much. But then it's like, oh wait, Avatar: The Last Airbender. That's kind of what that was.
So, my original stance with regards to pacing in anime was that if it wasn't a linear story and it didn't keep my attention with the linear story in every episode, I believed the anime was inferior in some ways. In a lot of ways, it's something where the the enjoyment I got out of something like Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood took the experience of anime and what it was just to new heights. It was probably why, in a lot of ways, I loved Code Geass so early.
Oh yeah, the first season of Code Geass is absolutely breakneck.
Yeah, it's breakneck pacing. They shove so much information at you, and yet, actually, on analysis of what makes its substance substantial, it's not
tautology at its finest.
Yes, I know, right? It was actually kind of eye-opening, like kind of oh wow, my opinions on anime have changed over the years. Yeah. So going through a lot of these anime recently, I have basically come full circle on episodic anime being, in some ways, like the ones where I get the most kind of discussion value out of it, because they're able to tell more stories than the linear ones.
Sure.
And it's the linear ones that feel like sometimes where they're telling you where the story has to go, but because they don't want to get there immediately, they actually have to slow things down a little bit.
Right.
And it's these episodic stories that will tell these compact mini stories tied to the overarching thing. It's almost like I forgot what Avatar: The Last Airbender was.
So he kind of forgot. He kind of forgot about how Avatar: The Last Airbender told the story, but
Caleb forgot what he actually likes in storytelling.
But
sorry, my filthy Frank impression right here.
But like, if you think about it, we harp so much on the characters, right?
Yes.
And the characters really are the story.
They are.
But then, you know, we would talk about how, it has to be this compact, short-form story. But if you think about it, you're getting less time with the characters. Now, granted, that can mean that the time that you do get with the characters is better because you don't have to worry about if the characters are just sort of doing things for the plot of,
right.
You know, like when I was going back and rewatching some episodes of Bleach, and Rukia is my favorite character from Bleach, hands down. But I was realizing, like, oh yeah, she was used as just sort of the exposition, server, basically, for a lot of the story, right?
Yeah.
Because that's just what you need to have happen. But not all long-running episodic kind of stories do that, right? Like, March Comes In Like a Lion, that isn't, like, it's not episodic because, like, there's different things, it has a linear progression, but it doesn't really have like a specific like end goal in sight.
Yes.
Right? It's just people going through life. And I would happily watch that just, as long as episodes were to come out, right?
Yeah, and it's the basically just the development of the cast that is the entire goal of the story. But it has no end point. It's just them progressing through life.
Right. And all of the episodic narratives and stuff that they do and the way they handle the characters feels like it is not just that it fits, but that it's necessary, right? And yet necessary for what, right? Usually, when I think of something that's necessary for a story, I think of necessary for a story so that it can achieve some goal, right? So
amazing.
You can have some,
Sorry, I threw you off. I'm sorry.
But the idea that it's like, okay, you're setting out to maybe tell a full, finished package of a story, right?
Yes.
So that piece needs to be there for that. But no, it's like, no. What if you're just going on a little moseying adventure through life?
Yeah.
That needs to be there. And it's easy to forget that because when I used to watch anime, I wasn't as like sort of pressed for time, so it was okay, right? I would be up for those more moseying stories, like with Toradora. Like, there's a part of me that wonders, would I be as in love with that show if I went into it now, like if I watched it now, and if I was like being like, okay, when are we going to get the stuff each and every episode? And even though there is stuff every episode, I might not have been okay with it taking as long as it did, for a 2-core show, right?
In fact, that's probably the only criticism I've heard about Toradora is that its pacing is actually like a little bit strange.
It takes its time.
Most people. Yeah. Is this the official Bleach Redemption podcast, Kappa? No, see, the thing is that Jacob has always held to the defense of the earlier parts of Bleach being like something that deserves some praise.
Well,
specifically with regards to certain characters.
Those are my personal favorite parts of Bleach, and the idea that there is good stuff to be had in Bleach. It's just a shame all the other stuff that you kind of have to dig through in order to get to it. But yeah.
But this is something that's kind of interesting here with regards to all the shows that we've watched. And while they're very different, I would say in a lot of ways we've been kind of spoiled with regards to anime that we've watched, being all these incredible shows, sans maybe a couple here and there. Or more specific one. But the I love how Jacob is like, he's confused as to which one I'm talking about here. Like, of course he would be confused.
Oh, right. Hey, so, Caleb.
So hold on.
Hey, you said that. I can't let that slide. People, the Domestic Girlfriend manga is amazing. And because I've seen you do this before, you liked the Momo episode. There were episodes of Domestic Girlfriend that you liked.
Of course, yeah.
So, don't tell me that you're too good for Domestic Girlfriend.
I just didn't feel like I was spoiled by Domestic Girlfriend.
Well, of course not.
With almost every other anime.
You were spoiled by Domestic Girlfriend in a different way. But
right, the whole premise is a spoiler. All right, so
just that it spoiled you. Yeah, like food.
Yes, exactly. So there have been a lot of stories that we've watched recently, and this is something that's very interesting about the kind of discussion that comes between us with regards to anime and also with our community on Discord and stuff like that. Is that everyone has very different opinions regarding pacing and stuff. So our opinions are just that, they're opinions and stuff. It's just something that's been interesting to realize that a lot of my opinions on storytelling have solidified in certain areas, but with pacing, it's almost done this full like 360 or like 420, if you will.
Like shift, like, because it's not that we think that the short shows are like less good because they have the efficient pacing and everything, but it's just this realization that you like. There are no rules in art.
Yes.
Right? There are guidelines and and you want to understand why people say to do certain things or not do certain things, but every rule can be broken. You know, there's no hard and fast rules.
Yes. Right? Yes. And that's been something that's been reminded to us like over and over again by these shows is we'll watch a show and we'll be kind of like, we're a little lukewarm on this in the beginning. We'll kind of figure it out. And then it kind of does what it does, you know, because it's its own self, like a little piece of art, and we go, ooh, kind of tasting the little bits of goodness that it gives us, and we're like, whoa, this is something new. I've never experienced this. Like, do you remember when we got into Haikyuu for the first time?
Yeah,
and you were worried, like, sports, like how actually engaging could this be?
Wait, what memory do you have?
That's what you were worried. That is
what?
Yeah.
Okay, no. I was the one who convinced you we needed to put Haikyuu on a poll.
No, I had friends that were like really like hardcore, you need to watch Haikyuu.
No.
Dude, Haikyuu was one of the first shows we put on the poll. It was back there with Hunter x Hunter.
You were like, I'm not into volleyball. And then I showed you the Pro CD video of the volleyball. I don't give a shit about volleyball. And then the center, you know.
Okay, maybe I'm thinking after that, though, when we were actually starting the show.
Yes.
You did have the reservation of like, okay, this is a sports shonen. Like, I hope it ends up being good. But there's so many people that say, yes, totally.
And the thing is, even when I look back on it, like, the idea of Haikyuu, I could see that being something where people don't end up liking the pacing if for any reason they're not completely sold on the characters. Then when you get into the volleyball matches, they might be like, you know, it's not really my thing. But then at the same time, it's like, no, how could people think that? It's Haikyuu, right? It does this amazing, wonderful thing that from the outside, right?
Yeah.
You know, you'd be like, no, like, I don't know if you're not familiar with sports anime, but then,
Yeah. So there are these stories that we've each watched, and I'm going to kind of go over a few of mine. Jacob will go over a few of his that have kind of been primarily influential with regards to what kind of shifted the change. Because I feel like, for me, I now feel less pressured to like rush the story onward, if that makes sense.
Sure.
So my overall palette for pacing has slowed down a lot. There's a lot of shows where I get really excited and I'm able to run with it as it goes lightning fast.
Yeah.
I loved rewatching Bacano recently because the manic, chaotic, fast pacing of it
it's whack.
is something that I'm just like, oh yeah, like this is like a drug for me. I'm just like just inject it like straight. I'm like putting it on the tongue. I'm everything. I'm like, let's go. And yet there are these other shows like Monster, like Sangatsu, like Monogatari. There are these shows where I just get to sit back and just go, oh, oh. Like I feel like there's this massage almost that comes with regards to these shows, like kind of kneading in the story, like. Well, it's almost like a baking process. We're going to like assemble all the ingredients. We're going to start preparing the individual parts, mixing up the special things here. We're preheating the oven. Like we're not even getting to the payoff yet. Like we're still like prepping everything there. And I don't feel pressured in my mind to be like, yo, you got to move things along. You have to send things forward. So main show I have to talk about first that really changed my opinion about this was Monster.
Yeah, Monster,
I feel like does not get enough praise, probably because of the way it's not being distributed right now.
Yeah.
Like y'all, if I could choose one of the anime that we've watched to its entirety right now, because there's not actually that many that we've finished
watched to entirety.
Yeah,
because we've been on JoJo's for like 2 years.
Yeah, we've been on JoJo's for 2 years. Haikyuu's not going to be done. It's going to have a 4th season eventually. There's all these shows out there that are kind of ongoing style shonen big things and stuff like that. But of all the things we finished, if I could basically just tell everyone what a masterpiece it is, Monster deserves way more praise, because I think Monster, with maybe 2 other shows, was primarily influential in letting me kind of be patient with a story, weaving a tale, weaving character arcs amongst each other, setting up the world, letting the exposition come to me in not big dump pockets, like, because I think a lot of stories will realize that they don't want to tell too much, so they're basically like, oh, okay, we're gonna compromise a little bit here, but that's okay because the rest of the whole thing,
we're gonna keep it contained,
we're gonna contain it like a plague, basically,
like second episode of Madoka Magica, like second episode of Madoka Magica has a ton of exposition in it, right? First episode, almost no exposition. Episodes 3 and onward, very little, right? You know, but they sort of set up everything in, you know, in that second episode, and then there you go, and then they continue on with the story. One of the weirdest ones for me, actually, for pacing, like, yes, March Comes In Like a Lion, and Monogatari and Monster, but weirdly enough is actually Kill la Kill. Ah, yeah. Because, and here's why. Going back and rewatching Kill la Kill, it's very noticeable, actually, how mellow of a pacing it has episode to episode. Within the episode, it keeps things manic. Sure. But if you think about what they do, you know, like it takes a while. They take their time. They go through all the things of the naturals election and the, you know, and all of that stuff, right? But because they so won me over with the first 3 episodes, you know, and they kept all the episodes fun enough, it was something where I didn't realize that they were actually very much moseying through the story. And I think that's why the side characters in Kill la Kill are so good. Because they were able to take that time and just sort of go around, right? And then when you get to the end, because of how manic it was within each episode, I didn't realize that it had that kind of pacing. And then going back and rewatching, it's like, oh yeah, no, there's a lot of episodes where it's like, it's very clearly not pertaining to the main plot. Yeah, but it builds the characters, and it's just, you know, good fun.
Yeah, right? I've heard plenty of people now that I finished it say things like, "There's a good 4 episodes of Kill la Kill that didn't need to be, like, not there, but they didn't need to be that long. They could have been condensed into 1 episode or something."
Sure, and like, and I totally get that, and I totally agree in a lot of ways, and yet. Because I had so much fun with the show, I kind of don't want any of it to be taken away. Like same thing with like Toradora. Like there are episodes of Toradora where I could say like these episodes are weaker. Now I can still point out for those episodes exactly how they contributed to the main story, right? But the idea of like, well, could they have just been condensed? It's like maybe, but would that have made it feel less real, I guess?
Yeah, so with your position basically being something where you were, I would say, enlightened a lot earlier, you enjoyed the episodic shows, you had a lot of fun with those, more, I would say, slice of life kind of style thing. But you didn't even think about it with regards to pacing,
right? Like
you were just enjoying the characters doing their story,
and it was usually just because the characters absolutely won me over, right? And that kind of a thing, because that's a very real thing that happens where because you just get won over so completely by one thing, you're able to enjoy a show that otherwise might have things that you would basically not be able to get into it because of.
Yep.
And that's why watching a show at the right time to watch a show, I feel like, is so important.
Sure.
Because otherwise you're not going to be ready for it. Like, could you imagine what it would have been like if we watched Monster and we weren't ready for Monster? Like, if we were wanting something like A Place Further in the Universe or something, that would have been awful. Yeah. Right? Pearls Before Swine, like, it would have sucked.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Mm-hmm. I have no real opinions, Revolutionary of the Sixth Paths, on the length of an individual episode, because I am generally always going to be talking about it based on the grander narrative, and usually the episode structure is just based on how many chapters of manga they want to adapt into the episode, because the chapters usually have a natural ending point. Most of them do. Mm-hmm. So then they just decide how they want to shove it in. And I don't know enough about manga also to really be one that has a lot of opinions about that. I enjoy the fact, comparatively to live action style of doing the 43 minutes to an hour length, I like the 23 to 25 minute or whatever episodes for anime. So it's something where while I would prefer certain bits of consistency, I don't really notice or care because the episodes are already so short.
Right.
So,
and the idea of, like, if you, like, when I think about it from a rewatch perspective, sometimes having the episodes be shorter makes it easier, because then if you have episodes that are more sort of the moseying episodes, you don't have to rewatch those. Like, if I were to rewatch like Kill la Kill, I might not necessarily rewatch like episode 4, you know, or something. But whereas if it's an hour or a 45-minute, then it's kind of like with rewatching Lord of the Rings. Like, you have to actually make an event out of rewatching Lord of the Rings, right? As amazing as Lord of the Rings is, just because it's longer. But yeah, I don't know.
Wax Casual, the whole thing of the Cour system is something that I don't even understand why it's a thing in the first place. But
seasons.
I mean, I get that, but I don't even know why TV show seasons are a thing.
Yeah.
That whole thing there is something that I feel like does hold back some anime, and it's interesting because Monster is one that was not Cour based or anything like that. It just did.
I don't think
all 74.
Yep.
And then it was good. So maybe on some level, the whole thing of how I think in a lot of ways MHA's genius with regards to pacing needs to be kind of stated out in that respect. Like, there's this aspect of MHA's, like, when MHA is like the best that it can be, like in season 2, there are these specific things that they will, kind of acknowledge that they're going through, like, straightforward through a specific story arc. And based on what I've heard, based of the manga's adaptation and stuff like that, they did things a little bit differently. They didn't do a perfect 1-to-1 of the manga with regards to things like the tournament arc, but having a planned out direction with regards to the adaptation well in advance beforehand, rather than reacting to it, but having that picture for it kind of done on the Cour season length thing maybe helps the production team figure that out.
Sure.
And this is all supposition, but I would say maybe that's also where non-seasonal shonen, like ongoing constant shonen, have a lot of their problems, is that just because they're always on, that's where the adaptation part suffers. And then people like your friend who was like, don't watch Naruto, just read the manga basically, and you'll have a much better experience overall because you don't have any filler.
That was a conclusion I came to on my own.
Oh, that was a conclusion you came to on your own? Yeah. How much of the anime did you watch before you realized that?
I can't remember, because I can't remember what exactly I can't remember whether it was before Shippuden or after.
Oh, wow. So you watched a lot.
Yeah.
I watched a lot. You watched a lot. Yeah. Dang.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, what about rereading the Silmarillion? So, the Silmarillion, I'm a Jew, I would say, get the audiobook read aloud by Martin Shaw. He's amazing. And then you can just listen to him just serenade you and orate about the beauty and the wonders of the first age.
Oh my gosh.
That's how I would do it.
Yes, this is someone echoing the timing thing. Swifty Nate, I think what you touched on in regards to watching shows at certain times, depending what you're in for, is so important. Didn't enjoy FMAB when I watched it, and I'm sure if I watched it now, I'd probably get more out of it. Totally.
And having something like FMAB be something that leaves a bad taste in your mouth, it's like, no, you don't want that. You don't want that.
Yeah. Do you have an anime in mind with poor pacing? MHA's pacing in Season 3's Battle Royale was not good, probably because of anime filler. I would say that it's pretty easy to find bad pacing in any show that goes for more than 2 cours. It's very easy to find bad pacing. The thing is that usually it's not actually bad pacing for the show. I would call it inconsistent pacing on a arc by arc, episode by episode, sequence of episode by sequence of episodes.
Yeah, like,
because I would say Hunter x Hunter, JoJo's, like all the big shonen that we've watched all suffer from bad pacing at specific parts.
Right, and then there's the parts where they totally kill it, but then, just because of the number of episodes,
MHA's Battle Royale part is a great example of where the pacing went very low in terms of quality.
Bleach is an easy one to mention, so I'm not going to, but the one that actually I've found really is a damper on rewatch for me is Soul Eater.
Yeah,
because I have a lot of fun with Soul Eater, right?
Totally.
But I can't tell you the number of times that I've gone, like, browsing through Netflix. I don't know if it's still on Netflix, but
I think it is.
And I would basically be going through the episodes, and I'd be like, oh, I really feel like watching Soul Eater. What episode should I watch? And then I'd go through and I'd be like, sure, I could watch that one. No. And I would end up basically just going through the list of all the episodes in the show and be sort of like, like, because I really had the Soul Eater itch, right? But I would go through all the episodes and I would realize, like, oh yeah, not a whole lot happened over the course of the show given the number of episodes that it had. And then it'd be like, okay, well, I guess I'll rewatch stuff with Crone and, or like Soul and Maka or things like
basically
that.
All the really good stuff.
But it was surprising how long it actually felt, if that makes sense, even though it didn't turn out to be that long.
Right. It's something that I think was also a little bit of, it's one of the minor problems, but I would say it was one of the bigger things that clued people in that there was going to be problems with Game of Thrones moving forward when the pacing started to get a little wonky and inconsistent as early as like season 5. As I'm not talking about just the stuff in Dorne. I'm talking about stuff throughout the season. There were moments where you'd be like, huh? Oh, okay. I guess that's not a big deal, though. And season 6, it started to get a little worse. Season 7, it started to get really bad. And then in 8, it's just like, actually, they might have bottomed out in 7 with regards to pacing. And 8, it was just kind of like, they had other problems.
Well, but so you had a theory that you were telling me about with Game of Thrones, that it was basically something where they realized, we can't do this. Let's just finish it quickly.
Yep.
So that way we don't waste any more of HBO's money, kind of a thing.
Or waste any more of our career time.
Yeah.
So we get a big bomb of just everything going badly.
Rip it off like a Band-Aid.
Yeah, rip it off for a Band-Aid, hide for a year or so. Yeah. And then everyone will forget it and move on. Which is not a bad strategy, but it sucks that we had to deal with it.
Especially for something like Game of Thrones.
JoJo bad pacing. I wonder if that's referring to the rock, paper, scissors kid. Everyone's favorite episode, Kappa. See, actually, I don't think that part 4 has any pacing issues in terms of I would say the episodic content, because it's always been in some ways an episodic show. Well, especially this part.
But it's very open about being sort of that moseying journey. Yes. Whereas with part 3,
some of those earlier parts in the first 30 something episodes. Well, and there were some just like
the fact that it was stand of the week and they spent 2 episodes on each stand. The style of them. The style of it was most of them. The style of it was great, but it still got into that point of, okay, here's another stand. How long is it going to take them to figure out that it is a stand user?
I would say that we can easily find inconsistent pacing in a lot of stories, but one of the things that's been a real treat with regards to experiencing all these new anime and stuff is realizing that with every little genre that anime can bring out, every kind of unique manga that gets, a wacky adaptation or what have you, there's so many styles without like even going into like, categories. Like I love. Oh, even someone said it, the pacing in Ippo. Ippo is a big show.
And it's insane.
And we're only like what, 40 episodes or something into it, or what have you, like upper 30s or whatever. And it's like the pacing of what they just decide. Yeah, you don't need to deal with that. We're just gonna move ahead. Blows my mind because I'm thinking about this show, and I always get like bogged down. It sometimes ruins my enjoyment of something with the meta knowledge that the show has to have kind of big climaxes that have some sort of finality before they breathe a bit and then start build up for the next climax. And it's like, okay, Ippo does that over and over and over again so frequently to the point where I'm like, what the heck? Is this show just gonna go on till he's an adult and he has kids? Right. Like, how can they freaking maintain this pacing? Yeah. It just blows my mind. Oh wow.
Oh, ping pong, that's quite the one for pacing.
Oh, pacing in ping pong is it's like
right.
smooth butter with regards to how it just like
whoosh, well, here's one thing.
Whoosh,
Ping pong is another great example of a show that doesn't follow the traditional core structure in that it's only 11 episodes. Now, maybe there are some cases where that would actually happen, but I don't think so. And just episode 6 of ping pong, like like the show as a whole is fantastic, and again, that's more of the compact story type deal, but oh man, that's just fantastic.
Someone's saying, is pacing in shonen anime even a thing? So many of them are hell-bent on creating conflict and hype.
Well, see,
actually,
this is where I would say it is because in a lot of ways shonen don't have to deal with that issue all the time, because like when I think about bad pacing, like it's all subjective anyways, right? So when someone says a show has like bad pacing in parts or something, what they're basically saying is I wasn't entertained during this section of the story, right? I felt like it was kind of a waste of time, right?
Yeah.
If your show is based around having a bunch of action, then great. And if your fans are there specifically just for the action, go for it, right? You've got a good formula there.
Yeah.
The thing is if they're wanting something more than that, and you give that to them occasionally, right?
Yeah, you can set expectations.
That end up not being met. Yep. So like the old like original fans of like Dragon Ball Z or Bleach or Naruto or things like that, they'll still love their show, right? And they might realize that a bunch of it is nostalgia, but they'll still have no problem going through it because they're getting so much enjoyment out of it just from the nostalgia that there's always something for them, right?
Right.
They're re-experiencing their childhood.
Yeah.
Whereas if you were to say, like, if I, for instance, was to go into Dragon Ball Z, I would have a very hard time getting into it because of the pacing. Like I actually stopped watching Dragon Ball Z right before
the Vegeta
Goku and Vegeta were about to fight for the first time because that bridge just it hurt me. It hurt me.
Like, it's sometimes in shonen, it's actually kind of funny how obvious they'll be with where they're like, and here's where we slow down the pacing. Oh, and get ready because we're about to pick up the pacing for 6 episodes. They just go. And then here's where we just do nothing for like 20 episodes, and here's where we go hard for another 15. And it's like it's inconsistent. And I would say that consistency is like one of the most brilliant things with regards to pacing in anime. I love now that it doesn't have to be consistently fast or consistently like breakneck or consistently even building in some ways the overall story, like the main plot, if you will. The idea that you can have the same consistent pacing but tell a mini story of, your boy going to Thailand and having a little bit of a soul-searching journey there. Like that worried me so much when it happened, and within about 5 minutes I was like completely fine with it. If you don't know what anime we're talking about, we're not gonna go talk about too much because we're talking about a lot of anime, but we don't want to go too much into spoilers with anything here. So I hope you guys are still getting a lot out of this.
Because pacing is kind of like a general-ish.
I'm so sorry. K Fazy, I missed your Twitch Prime sub. I'm so sorry. Welcome to the SOS Brigade. Glad to have you here.
Yes.
Make sure to get in the Discord through the invite link in our subscriber chat. But,
I'm in charge of the castings. Ting ting.
Oh my. Attack on Titan Bridge. Wow. Why is wait, hold on. Cyros saying something. Weird pacing was mostly an issue with the way manga was adapted, or way anime was adapted to manga. Wait, manga was adapted to manga?
Well,
manga was adapted to anime,
right?
Or what have you. Which is why most anime now much more tightly written in recent years, even those that are slowly paced. Yes, in some ways, maybe what's happening is we have this influx of people looking for anime, and we're aware of how quickly people consume the material and move on to the next thing. So in order for them to consume it and have it mean something, like they rewatch it, they share it with their friends, and it becomes a bigger thing or what have you, there's, especially I would say in the earlier parts of the anime, and this is probably always a thing because it's just a basic selling product thing, is you front load like that premium stuff, so you get that part down really well.
Right. Start strong. Yeah.
Start strong, and I would say especially with the pacing. I think the Kill la Kill situation is a great example of that. I think MHA is a fantastic example of that. I think some of the longer shows that we've done more recently, Ippo. Wait, actually, no. Let me go back to the beginning of JoJo's. In some ways, the first 3 episodes of JoJo's are nigh perfect with regards to pacing in a weird way.
Yeah, because even though it's something that's so like JoJo's overly dramatized and whatnot, they
milk it.
They milk it.
Oh yeah,
they still go through all the general story arc of this happens, then this happens, Kono Dioda, blah blah blah, fight.
Yep. Yeah. Monster. I think Monster. I would say that Monster's thing is I never really got excited about the pacing in Monster in the beginning, but I was impressed that I was never pulled out of the experience because of anything being like intentionally held back from me or intentionally kind of like shoved in my face. In some ways, like, do you remember when I had that weird issue with the early parts of Attack on Titan Season 3? And there were a couple answers that I felt like they were just shoving at me.
Yeah, it's coming a bit too fast. Yeah.
Right. That's an example of something where I would say there's that inconsistency in the pacing.
Right, because Attack on Titan hadn't been doing that up till that point, and because Season 2, if anything, was a throttle... Well, was it a throttle back, though? I
don't know.
Because the female Titan arc was a throttle back on pacing.
It was.
So, I don't know, but
it's tricky.
But there was definitely a transition from Season 2 to Season 3. With how that went, so it felt
a little jarring. But I would say most of the time when the pacing is good, when the pacing is fine, you don't really notice it. It's kind of like good sound OST, like a good OST. You'll notice it when they really want you to notice it, but for about maybe 75% of it, unless you're a music kind of a musically inclined kind of person there, if you're just an average Joe like me who doesn't know crap about music, you won't notice it most of the time. It's just there in the background doing its job, being consistent and helping you basically feel the right things when when you need to feel them, and helping accentuate the scenes. And I think good pacing for an arc-based story or even a character's story arc is that. It's that supporting kind of mesh underneath the story that everything kind of bounces off and has a lot of, fun with. But do
you guys prefer the 3-act structure or the 5-act structure? I'm not too familiar with the 5-act structure, but isn't that basically just the 3-act structure but with bookends?
I think the thing with the 5-act structure is it's actually it more of separates and puts 2 middles. So you have 1, 2, 3, but then 2 and 4 are basically sandwiched in between 1 and 2 and 2 and 3.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Pass along the info regarding the 5-act structure, because it has been a while since I have studied that that area of things in particular.
And if there's anything to say, like, okay, granted you asked for a personal preference, but one of the things that has helped stoke this realization in us about pacing is that you can do whatever you want.
Yep.
Like certain things will work better than others, but if you understand what you're doing and why you're doing it, there's no limits, right? You'll just have it, you'll just be creating something different. But me personally, probably the 3-act structure. Probably.
Yeah, I would say I love the simplicity of the 3-act structure. And unless I'm missing something, prologue, conflict, rising action, climax, falling action, denouement.
Isn't that 6?
That's 6, but prologue, I guess, doesn't count. 5-act structures have a mid-arc finale, like episodes to spill in 2. I think the pacing in the...
Oh, gotcha.
What? No, I'm... Okay, yeah. I think I kind of get the...
Yeah, that kind of makes sense. Yeah, you have an introduction, and then you basically have 2 stories after that. So you do one big introduction, then you do story conclusion, so that way you have the middle be a high point.
Right.
And then you do something else, and then boom, and then you're over.
Yeah, in some ways, I prefer the movie 3-act structure because it's simpler, but I would say that in some ways, you look at something like the original Star Wars trilogy, and how like strictly it follows the hero's journey. But then if you were to extrapolate the 3-act structure out of each movie and out of the trilogy as a whole, it almost works perfectly. Like, it's a very weird thing, except for maybe the Return of the Jedi's like little stuff in the beginning. I would say I would say it works for almost all the movies.
Isn't FMAB kind of 5-act structure? Well, it has 5 cores, so...
Well...
I mean, I don't know. Well, the thing is, with shows, it's a lot harder.
It's a show thing, so yeah, you generally would put it within the arcs of the show themselves. So...
I mean, you could do it for the whole show, but, like, I don't know. It's tough. Because,
Like, I think a better example of this is you look at something like Hunter x Hunter's individual arcs, like the York... Like, their most acclaimed ones. The York New Arc and the... Chimera Ant arc.
Right.
I would say in a lot of ways the Chimera Ant arc had the 5-act structure.
Right, and that's probably why a lot of the times when we discuss it, we break it up into
part 1 and part 2
of the Chimera Ant arc. Yeah,
and then the York New arc is a better example of the 3-act structure, not just because of length, but the specific moments where you have this shift between Kurapika and the Phantom Troops
interactions.
Well, no, our main boy, what's his name? Shoot, Frollo. Frollo.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Right.
The Act 3-act structure is good, but has been overused so much that without rising and falling action, some stories become too predictable. I think that predictability is not a bad thing with stories, though.
You just need to know kind of what you're doing with it.
I would say having the vision being kept consistent throughout is more important than the predictability of a show. I think calling a show predictable is like saying a Disney or Pixar movie is bad because of how predictable it was.
And those are like the classic examples of where you know exactly what's happening.
You know exactly what's going to happen, and it's going to be an amazing thing. Yeah. Like, there are the Braves of the Pixar movies. There are the Cars 2s. But you take something like Monsters, Inc., for instance. Monsters, Inc., I think, is one of the most genius Pixar movies ever made.
It's pretty fantastic.
It's pretty amazing. You look at it as a whole, that's a pretty dang predictable movie. There's like one little gotcha twist near the end and stuff. Spoiler alert, there is a fun little twist there. And it's like, oh, that was really creative. That was pretty cool. But then the overall, like, thing of it, like that, oh yeah, super predictable. Like every Toy Story one.
Yes. Thank you, Mesker. Everything becomes a trope eventually. Trying to be contrarian for the sake of it is useless in the end. Yeah. Now the thing is...
Subverting expectations, Jacob, is like one of the signs of a great storyteller.
Well, and the thing is that stories are made for the particular time that they come out. So doing something different, if that's something that feels like it will, like it's what's needed in the moment, like in the story cultural climate, absolutely.
Yeah.
Right. Like it's almost like the the strong female characters that would be all the rage, you know, and it's like, oh wow, this is so progressive, you know, like, you know, 15 years ago. But if people were to try and like do that now and tout that as being like, look at our great female characters, aren't we so awesome? It's like
you
people would laugh at them. Like,
yeah, it's like, yeah, that would have been impressive 15, 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And Dango Bro would also be interested in your thoughts about the Monogatari pacing.
Ooh,
Episodes felt
yeah.
like 5 minutes at times because it keeps you focused throughout the whole episode, and personally I love that.
Yeah, Monogatari is one of those ones that also I feel like definitely has the moseying pacing, because when I think about my favorite parts of Monogatari, it has nothing to do with the plot. Like, like almost nothing. Like the Kizu movies maybe are the exception to that.
Sure.
But it's all about those little interactions that you have between the characters, and I would happily just watch interactions between the characters. And oh, sure, oddities, I guess kind of that helps give it some structure, but you know, that's not why I love Monogatari. So yeah, the pacing for Monogatari is fantastic. A bit weird.
Yeah,
but fantastic.
A lot more different than we're used to, because one of the things with regards to pacing is, like people are talking about here with the 3 versus 5 act structure, even that doesn't need to be held to.
Yep.
Even that in some ways is a bit archaic. It is something that we've used because of the basic structure of how myths were shared around, you know, our ancestors' campfires and in the children's stories of the night or what have you. So we get them in the and then it's like, just because that little like that little thing like works for kind of building the you know, building the investment that we have in this story that's being shared with us, you can take the long, like untreaded road of just moseying around and having a good time.
And there's plenty of old examples of that. Arabian Nights, right?
Totally.
It's all about you just madam, your life depends on basically making sure that the king wants to hear what happens next. For what was it, like 1,000 nights? Yeah,
I think it was 99.
Yeah, however long it went, and then eventually it's just, you know, yep, okay, yeah, I'm not gonna kill you, you know, like that is a fantastic example of making an engaging story where it doesn't matter, like like you just want to hear the story keep going. There was a point for me where I was at that level with Haruhi, where the spin-off Disappearance of Nagato Yuki-chan show came out. And they did something in the second half of that show that I absolutely loved so much. And even though I didn't like the first half of the show as much, and I was just watching it because it was Haruhi,
I
didn't care, right? And I was like, oh man, I would totally just watch as much if they kept it up to this quality, you know, even though there were problems with the first half. I would happily watch as much Haruhi content as came out, right?
For sure.
You know, so
yeah. Yuliga, so glad you brought this up about when a story comes out. Let's take JoJo Part 1 as an example. People usually think it pales in comparison to the other parts because it's too predictable, etc., but forget that it did release 30 years ago. Absolutely.
And in a lot of ways, David Productions did such an amazing job with taking the fact that it came out 30 years ago, and it is so like tropey and dated in a lot of ways, and hamming it up. Like don't be ashamed of that. Own that shit.
Yeah, exactly.
Like oh man, those like I think that was our favorite part about the first few episodes when we watched it. It was just that this is so cheesy.
Oh yeah,
but it's so brazenly confident in its cheesiness.
Exactly like Jonathan, like and then like jumping over the fountain with the camera, like
as it just zooms into this frame that is getting less and less like good resolution as you get closer.
Yep. Oh yeah, we see you people like talking about Gintama and stuff. Gintama is a beast, and we're not talking about if or when we're going to do it.
Yeah.
If a show has you hooked, then a slow pacing works. Fast pacing is kind of I'm kind of bored. Let's get to the next thing. Now, I understand why you're saying this. One of the things though that I feel like is comparable to this is, let's take food for instance. And whenever anime is done with food, they slow things down.
Sure.
And they look at it. They examine every angle from it. They cast light on it. They do multiple shots of different types of food and stuff. And when you eat food that's really good, you have to sometimes fight to keep yourself from eating it too quickly. Yeah. You actually intentionally take your time with that like juicy steak or that like specific dessert or whatever.
Or that anime show that you're going to be watching for another year because part 5 just came out. like think about it. That's basically what we do.
Yes, the point is that when something is good, you take it in, you chew on it, you have it kind of simmer, you let it sit and settle. I think that having a story go with the pacing of having something like Kill la Kill, where it's manic, or like Baccano, it's just rip roaring like that, makes the rewatching of it more exciting. But also, I would say, with regards to us watching it, like you said, on a week-to-week basis, we get to then sit on that 23-minute or what have you bite of something, regardless of if it's manically fast or like sultry slow. Like we'll get to pick it apart. We'll get to chew on it. We'll get to have that time. And I think that is why I would say we're able to pull out a lot of enjoyment out of shows that we were like not necessarily expecting as much enjoyment out of. Like I can think back to Devil is a Part-Timer. Y'all, Devil is a Part-Timer was a show that I loved the premise of, but I was super glad in my mind that it was only going to be 13 episodes because my thought was there's no way they can maintain a good pacing on the wacky fun of this show without it going a bit kind of sideways with regards to things.
And that's why I feel like things like Monster and Monogatari and Sangatsu work so well because it's made and presented in such a way that it's sustainable. That basically, like with Monster, for instance, the episodic episodes are some of the best episodes in the show, right?
Absolutely.
They could just keep doing adventures with Tenma. With Monogatari, you just need to have Araragi just cycle through more of the characters and have great conversations with them, right?
Conversations are my jam.
Or taking Shinobu to get donuts or whatever, right? And you could do that in perpetuity. Right? Now, I'm sure there's going to be an overarching story that is going to cohesively be told by the end of the show, right?
Yes.
But you know, if you cut down on all those conversations, I'm guessing it's probably something that could be done in like 30 episodes instead of 90 or whatever it is. But you'd miss out on all that, all the heart of it, right? So you wouldn't want to do that. With Sangatsu, right? So much of it is in the subtle expressions and just the lingering looks and the fact that these characters can't bring themselves to dredge up all this stuff inside them that they need to.
That's real life, yo.
Because that's real life.
That's real
life,
life,
Would it get solved perfectly and quickly if they did it? Yeah, but you can tell a one-sentence story, but that's not something that will be very compelling, right?
Yep.
Whereas doing something like this, you can spend as much time as you need on it because there's always something. Even if it's not some crazy plot development, you're lingering on it, you're focusing on it, like in a Silent Voice. Even if Shoko's not saying anything, she's saying things, right? So
I know you haven't finished it yet, but so far, what are your thoughts about The Promised Neverland? A lot of manga readers think the pacing is very, very bad. Personally, as someone who watched the anime first along with you guys, I think the pacing fits the show really well. I'm not really going to go too in-depth into the whole thing because we're actually probably going to be talking about Promised Neverland next week.
Exactly.
Stick around and watch that, leave a follow and all that so you stay up to date on that podcast. But I would say the pacing has moments where it goes a little wonky, but it is really good as far as pacing goes. I was surprised with more than half of the episodes, at least, how good they got. Yeah. So yeah.
The Sangatsu manga still doesn't have an official English release. Bible Thumb.
Oh, what?
Yes,
Dang.
Ricketts. That is a shame.
That is very.
That is an absolute shame. Wow.
Yeah. One sentence story, like all the best parts of the similar. I love that you keep bringing up Lord of the Rings.
Yeah,
you're gonna be with us, like getting super hyped about the second age Lord of the Rings TV show that's coming out soon.
And here's the thing, again, no hard and fast rules exist for art. Every rule is meant to be broken.
Yep.
Yes, the one sentence stories in the Silmarillion are absolutely amazing.
Yep.
You know, would I have loved it if on Calagon the Black Dread got more focus in the Silmarillion? Yes, but you know what we got was still great, right? So yeah. Well said. I rest my case.
Well said, yes. Cyros, good slow-paced shows are actually quite bizarre since the amount of information provided is very similar to fast-paced shows. It's just that the information given is much more subtle instead of in your face. Yes. I would say that in a fast-paced show, you don't want to have your audience left guessing regarding what are the themes of this show? I don't get it. They're like, nope, we'll give it to you obviously, and we'll actually simplify the themes. This is something that we did think about talking about in this podcast, but we can kind of bring that up here, and that is with regards to character arcs and tying them in with the pacing, themes, and all that of the story, and thus telling a simple story like nigh perfectly. That's one of my favorite things about anime that choose to be simple, because I think that we too much maybe in our there's too many. Maybe I don't want to do a rant on critics, but I feel like there's a little bit too much desire for internet clout with critics and having that sweet take on the five-head, like big brain galaxy brain show, and not just appreciating the story that doesn't have hiccups. It just does its thing. It's not trying to be the greatest show ever.
Right. Like
it's not trying to be like the most mind-bendingly insane thing. It just does its thing and it executes on it. And obviously it's not going to be for everyone, but it does its thing. It sticks with it and it's consistent.
Yeah,
it's
like
so consistent.
Like, to bring up some examples now. I absolutely love Your Lie in April. Absolutely love it, right?
Yeah.
The show's fantastic. Holds a very special place in my heart.
Oh yeah.
Now, if I were to compare it though, and comparing art is but if I were to compare it to something like Sangatsu, right? Your Lie in April went for the much more bombastic approach that got it a lot more acclaim.
Sure.
You know, and just general recognition than Sangatsu. Now it's also older, but you know what I'm talking about, right?
Right.
Whereas Sangatsu, much subtler, much slower, but I would say has a lot more depth than Your Lie in April.
Yeah.
You know, because it's able to explore those things a lot more thoroughly than, you know, the way that Your Lie in April did it, which is a great way of doing it, and I love Your Lie in April. But, you know,
so it's pressure cooking versus slow cooking, Kappa. Well, hey, I mean, I don't know exactly, but maybe.
Okay.
I think you're on the same wavelength as us.
So one of my favorite foods out there is shish tawuk.
Yes,
and I don't know if
it's Lebanese.
It's a Lebanese dish. And there's a local, you know, like family chain in Washington, you know, around where we are, that makes it, and it's absolutely incredible. And it's basically just grilled chicken, saffron rice, and this amazing garlic sauce that goes over the top, and then you've got some of the best hummus you've ever had with pita. There you go. You're good.
Right. But it's basically, you don't even need the hummus and pita. Like, the other stuff is It's chicken and rice.
It's chicken and rice. That's all it is, right? It's not cooked some crazy way. It's got a bunch of great spices, right? But it's nothing outlandish, right? But you can do it very quickly, right? You grill the chicken, you cook the rice. There you go, right? And it's one of the tastiest things I've ever had.
Yeah. So wonderful to have.
When we were in Texas, we got the opportunity to have barbecue.
Yes.
Now, with barbecue, when you're making that delicious brisket, that's not something that happens quickly, right? And it is absolutely incredible.
Yes.
Now, it's something that, you know, they're two very different kinds of things, right? They are both valid, they are both delicious, and I love them both to death, right? For different occasions, for different, you know, appetites, you know, whatever, you know, however you're feeling, right? But they don't cross over, right? You cannot compare the two.
Yeah.
Like it just doesn't really work. They're fundamentally different. So Maybe that's just because I'm hungry and I like talking about food. But using that as the example, I feel like that's kind of what you get, right? So you've got the things like the Madoka Magicas, the Bacanos, the Place Further Than Universes, and they are absolutely incredible, and they blow my mind every single time, right? Yep. But then you've got the okay, let's go, sit out in the hot sun and then get some barbecue, right? And then you get the barbecue and you're like, this is some barbecue. And then you eat it and you're like, this is
something that is like taking me into space. I am like ascending into like multiple dimensions. The flavor starts to like break your tether to reality, and you just realize, guys, we're all here, man. This has a bit devolved from the idea of pacing, but with regards to anime that take the simple route, I would say, with pacing and decide to have a consistent bit of pacing throughout, and usually those stories are shorter. They're shorter. Yeah. They are able, I would say, to make a real impression on us. But then there are these other stories that have a slower pacing, that in some ways they want to artistically express to you more so the medium that they're in themselves, even more so than the plot of the story. So it's something where, with how we started, we had maybe a little bit more of a singular vision in what anime could be with regards to pacing. And now we've realized that it's all food. There's so many different types, there's so many different courses, and there's bad examples on both ends. Oh, yes.
There's bad examples on both ends. Yes. And because we got so focused on the bad examples on the one end, right? Yeah. Because the bad examples to bring it back to food, if you have something where it's like you go to McDonald's and you're like, this is disgusting, and you're not really surprised, and it's no big deal. You're like, well, that was a quick mistake, and then you move on, right? Whereas if you're like waiting at the restaurant that's like been hyped up a bunch, and it took a long time to get in there, you made the reservations and all that stuff, and then you get it and the food's just like, this isn't good. This wasn't worth it. That can kind of hurt a little bit, right?
Right.
But you still need to take the time to explore those things that take more time to explore.
I guess. And I think that's partially part of it. What's partially it is that with having so many different anime that we're watching, it's not just that different subgenres, seinen versus shonen or slice of life or or what have you. It's not that they're basically limited in saying, well, because of now you've tapped into different genres, that's the way the pacing for that genre works. It's something where the story itself doesn't have to be. I don't really know what I'm saying actually at this point here. I would just say that if anything, I become a little bit more of a patient explorer. And the whole idea of finding out like what's my taste, what's my type of food anymore. It's more like, it's all food. It's all food. And like I'm gonna have bad experiences every once in a while, but it's all food and I'm hungry. Like I want more anime. Like I want a lot more anime. But then because maybe in some ways we've tempered our pacing, if you will, with regards to it, I don't feel in a rush to even experience the next hot new anime in some weird way. So I can wait for the Attack on Titan anime to finish and not read the manga.
Don't tell that to Frosted though, because if he hears you say that about Rakugo, he's gonna burst the blood vessel.
Suddenly, like Matt, like pops up in the chat, like, "You said what?
You thirsty, Caleb? Try Miru Tights." Oh boy.
Oh boy. That thing, yeah.
And that's fast. That's fast.
Wow. I live in the Pacific Northwest, so I live entirely on candied salmon and Starbucks. Ricketts, hey, you should check out the Mediterranean kitchen if you are in the Pacific Northwest area.
In Bellevue and in
Seattle,
Totem Lake. I think the Seattle one's closed down.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
But
Yeah, Caleb figuring out how everything can work if done right for anime. Now on to apply that to every field in life, and he'll have finally figured out the secrets of life in the universe. Oh my god.
There you go.
Nah, it's just me having a high because I'm also hungry as well.
Yeah, food's good.
I'm a white girl. I live off potatoes. I live in Eastern Europe. Hey, potatoes are potatoes.
Yeah.
Boil them, mash them, stick them in a stew.
Sasha would be proud.
Yeah. Yeah. Even you couldn't say no to that. To be honest, pacing for me is lull because just the camera and framing in anime in general is horrendous, considering it's a medium that gives you the freedom to even try wacky shots or try a lot more following shots or no cut shots. What? What?
No, but I kind of get what you mean, Meme Lord, because that was one of the things that, like, when I went from like watching anime to like trying to watch like more traditional Western shows, I would be just bored out of my skull watching all of these tracking shots where it's just people walking from one scene to the next. It's like, you don't need that.
Yeah.
But, you know, sometimes that can be some of the most impactful stuff. Like I watched, you showed me, what was it, Inglourious Bastards for the first time a few days ago.
Yeah.
And that whole first scene from Inglourious Bastards, right?
It was like 15 minutes.
It was like 15 minutes.
Yeah.
It has no, like, the characters there they never show up again. Nope. You know, well.
Well, actually.
Well, yes, but actually.
If you haven't seen Inglourious Bastards, it's a fantastic Tarantino film. It's not the best one, but it is one of the best.
Yeah.
And the crazy thing is it's like a 2-hour and 40-minute movie, and the pacing of it is exceptionally slow at certain parts, but it has this like vignette chapter style like mini arc to each scene. It's very, very, very good movie.
Yep.
Yeah. Haha, nice one. Considering the food analogy, any anime that is slowly consumed is much more reliant on hooking you fast with something tasty. Eating something that makes you go, oh, wait, what's that? If that doesn't happen, it can be jarring, even if the nice taste comes later. If you could say that again in a slightly different way, Cyros, I feel like I missed a little bit of what your point was here. Any anime that is slowly consumed is much more reliant on hooking you fast with something tasty.
Oh, talking about how good Breaking Bad is kind of a meme, but that shows some incredible pacing.
Oh, yeah. As someone who's finished Breaking Bad, watched the whole thing, Breaking Bad has some fantastic pacing.
Yeah.
It has some episodes that aren't as good, but the thing is, you look at the pacing of that show, and that's one of the best live action things it has to offer.
The opening scene for Inglourious Bastards, even though there's not much happening, it is a very intense scene, right? Sure. Even though the guys with the guns are outside, right? You know, and it's very much like keeping the it's basically holding this sense of impending doom over you throughout the scene, where you're like, when is this going to go bad?
Yeah.
Right?
Gotcha, Cyro. Slow pace equals needs fast hook, but fast pace is not too reliant on that. Because basically,
you need to win them over enough to
in a lot of ways, that's probably why a lot of my opinions on slower paced shows has changed, because not all slow paced shows actually have a fast hook.
Right.
Some of them have dramatic character introductions, which I think is the thing that we've kind of echoed over and over again as actually one of the low-key things that we need to celebrate when it does that. Because it's basically saying, regardless of whether or not this is a fast or a slow-paced thing, we're going to make this one character that we start the story off so obvious in where their depth is that everyone can grip onto that one character and use them as an anchor to then explore the rest of the story.
Like March Comes in Like a Lion does that very well with the way they introduce Rey. Like it might not be something that's for everybody because it's very much a dramatic anchor rather than like an action anchor or something.
Absolutely.
But for the kind of show that it is, that gets you sold very quickly.
Right.
And then again, Toradora, the first episode or 2 episodes, and the way they and the first scene of the first episode, it very much is a hook of, this is the kind of show that we're going to tell. You know, and if it's a bit slow, that's fine, because it kind of needs to be that way.
For sure. So yeah, may I hear your thoughts on Kuroko no Basket and Yuri on Ice pacing? We haven't seen those shows.
Yeah.
We have not seen those shows. Yuri on Ice has been on some polls, but we haven't seen it yet. Oh, for movie pacing, what do you guys think of Sword of the Stranger?
That one is definitely a slower one.
That's one that has maybe like the only really interesting thing about it that might need some work is the pacing, I would say.
And yet it's like, because what they do in that that movie, right? The movie is incredibly action packed. There's a ton of action in that movie, and the action is really good. Right. And they start out with a thrilling action scene, right? That is a great hook for the movie, right? I could imagine that if you just started with them sort of adventuring around together and traveling, that would get old for people. But then there's that aspect of the calm through the movie that contrasts with the action, that makes the action like more impactful, but also like why it needs to happen, you know, because it's defending these quiet moments. But yeah, I've seen people get bored by Sword of the Stranger just because it's slower.
Someone was asking about Inuyasha for the for the millionth time. We haven't seen Inuyasha either. I feel like there might be a little bit of a disconnect on what anime we've seen. But yeah, we haven't seen a lot of old school kind of I would say more classics in terms of shows, but although I don't think Boku no Hero Academia is a perfect anime at all, it has some amazing pacing in it. Yep. Great example, and that's probably why it redeemed Shonen in a lot of ways for me. Was they basically killed it with the main two characters, just killed it, and they had brilliant pacing early on to where I was like, I'm immediately invested.
I'm in love with this show.
I'm in love with this show. I grew up with cartoons and anime and rarely watched movies. I sometimes go to the cinema or even watch something online, but not often. I liked Interstellar and Arrival. Oh, I like those too. I basically haven't seen any classics. I'm scared to reach out sometimes. Don't know where to start even. We should start some aspect of that for our Discord, because that would be kind of fun to talk about more live action things that we've kind of gone back to and been like, there's a lot of value in that. I think Arrival is one of the underrated movies of the last 5 years. It was a really good movie.
This isn't a sci-fi one, but and it's kind of a random mention, but not The Usual Suspects. That one's fantastic. That's not sci-fi. But no. This one certainly isn't sci-fi, but it's the
Which one?
What's it? The Breakfast Club.
Oh, Breakfast Club. Yeah.
That's
a classic.
That is definitely a classic. Just fun, great movie.
I agree.
Not sci-fi at all because it takes place at a school, but it's great.
Jacob asked Caleb to play Dark Souls. Oh my gosh, Caleb, let's talk about the pacing of the 4-hour question marks Witcher streams. I don't know. Moving on. Are you finally updating your Annie list then? Oh, Jacob, could you update my anime list a bit? Or we might actually just leave it to the Annie list people who are updating it for us. Because we have an Annie list and a My Anime list, and there are people that are like, you guys should just dump the My Anime list thing and just use
just let it be list. Anime list.
Yeah. What was your first anime? Mine was Bleach.
Yep, mine was Naruto, but then it quickly went over to Bleach.
Yeah. What do you guys think of episodic series? I have grown to love them a lot more than I used to.
And Monster was huge for that.
Yeah, Monster was huge for that. In a lot of ways, the only really episodic series that I liked a lot, strangely enough, was Avatar: The Last Airbender. In a lot of ways, Avatar: The Last Airbender is a totally linear story for a good chunk of it, but a lot of season 1 is episodic.
And it's almost purely episodic. Like they don't really do arcs, like they'll do 2-parters sometimes, but And with Monster, because like the episodic stuff is, in my opinion, the best part. And if I were to complain about the pacing at some points, it's when they stop going episodic. Not all the time. Yeah. Most of the time it's great, but occasionally there would be points where it's like, I missed the episodic stuff. Oh, Violet Evergarden. Yeah, that's another great example.
I hope Caleb will change his mind on masterpieces needed to be mainly consistently good.
Well,
no.
Okay.
So
here's the thing. It's not about being an absolutely fantastic show. But when you're talking about it being a masterpiece as a whole, rather like masterpiece moments, for sure.
Yeah, but like Violet Evergarden has episode 10.
Yeah, and that is a masterpiece episode.
Yeah.
I personally wouldn't call Violet Evergarden as
in
a whole,
terms of story.
Yeah, just as the show as a whole, a masterpiece. It's a great show that
it's
I think
one
people
of the
should
best
watch.
artistic things that's come out of the last decade.
Right.
But I would say in terms of the whole package, it is not a masterpiece.
Right. But episode 10, hell yeah.
That's why in some ways I feel like the best way to talk about masterpieces is specifically with taking the whole thing rather than an individual bit. In fact, in a lot of ways, that's why a lot of people have gotten kind of upset when we've talked about how Hunter x Hunter, we believe, has masterpiece arcs and masterpiece moments, but the whole show is,
is not a masterpiece.
It's not a masterpiece. It's just really good.
Right, but it's something that you go to because you will not be able to get that kind of thing like anywhere else.
Well,
not
exactly.
Yeah, not exactly. Not in the way that Hunter x Hunter does it.
Yeah. Thermite Kitty, thank you so much for the Twitch Prime for the 9th month. Appreciate it. Foggy the Frog and Gondar 2, thank you so much for the follows as well.
Yes, Matthew Bow, that is a great point. That's fair. And you can still prefer a show that isn't a masterpiece because you love its masterpiece moments.
Exactly.
That is so true.
That's so true, yeah.
I absolutely love Haruhi. To say that it's a masterpiece, no. It has Endless 8. It has all sorts of problems, right?
Right.
I would say it's a classic of sorts but that's a different thing. But it is still one of the closest shows to my heart because of the things that I really loved that it did.
Yeah. That's a great point, Matthew Bow. That's a great point. Who's your guys' favorite voice actor? Mine is Takahiro Sakurai, voice of Reagan, Rohan, and Hayashida. That's a great voice actor. Yeah. Oh, I don't know, y'all. Like. In a lot of ways, it's hard to remember the names and more of just the characters that they've done.
Right.
I know we are huge fans of the Bro Skandar male voice actor in Japanese.
Yeah. If you're talking about Japanese voice actors, not English, that makes it harder and easier because
Yuki Kaji needs to be up there really high on the list.
Fantastic.
Though. Yuki Kaji is a god. It's actually scary how good he is.
And then I can't believe I'm forgetting her name, but the voice actress for Shoko is fantastic. And then maybe this is just me being a weeb, but Rei Takahashi, Megumin, anytime she's like in a show, like, what I've seen of Keijo or in Seiyu Life or whatever, it's so entertaining to listen to her just talk about stuff.
I also wouldn't call Hunter x Hunter as a whole masterpiece, even though it's my favorite anime. I would call the Chimera Antark a masterpiece, though.
Sure,
great example. Yeah. Same thing with Berserk and the Golden Age arc.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Or Koff Kleinad. Koff. Yep.
Oh yeah. Yep. For sure. And just because something isn't a masterpiece doesn't mean it isn't good or enjoyable.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yep. In a lot of ways, I think that everyone is going to have their different things that are going to make them a masterpiece. And shilling, sometimes in the process of shilling, actually, this is a little word of wisdom that tempers my shilling, but also just anyone else that's shilling out there. Don't feel bad if people combat your shilling passion because they seem to think that you're making too much objective statements regarding your favorite thing.
Right. That's all just stating opinion.
That's all just stating opinion. It's being passionate. So the same thing when someone comes to you and they're really passionate about a specific thing and they make statements that sound like they're trying to make an objective point. What they're really saying is this thing that I'm trying to shill to you is so important to me. It so moved and impacted me so much. I can't help but share it with you, even though the way I'm sharing it is pretty bad.
And there are some pretty concrete reasons that I feel this way. Like that I feel like that basically other people could potentially glean from. Like that's like someone mentioned that if every episode had to be 10 out of 10, then Code Geass wouldn't be a masterpiece because R2 dragged on a bit. Yeah, I would say that Code Geass isn't a masterpiece.
Yeah,
the ending. The first season, yes, please, right? Yeah. But like I feel like with at least when I talk about masterpiece, it's the idea of just take this story and just analyze it, and you can pretty much just use this as a basis for trying to, like as a standard to hold other shows up to, or if you're wanting to get creative and be artistic, just study this
for sure. Clavis Kiwi with the 1,000 bits. Hey guys! Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Thank you. Oh, it's nice.
Is Battle Lines a masterpiece? No. But it's a great story.
Battle Lines has a masterpiece ending.
And it is available for order on Amazon. Links in the description of all our most recent videos.
Write a review, please. Write reviews.
Yes, write a review.
Yeah.
And there's some signed copies up there.
Any interest in Durarara after Bacano? Sure, but like it's not really high on our list.
And because it's longer, I'd be more interested in watching that on my own time rather than a reaction.
Oh, yes, K-Fazy. Is it possible for an anime or show in general to be able to change the pacing of a story multiple times and be able to do it well? Yes, definitely. Very much so.
So to use an example, I would say Haruhi. Also Monogatari with everything that they did with Kizu.
Sure.
And I'm kind of saying something similar with Haruhi because of the disappearance movie. But yes, you can absolutely change the pacing and have it be a great thing. You just need to make sure that you don't basically like think of it like accelerating or decelerating with like a car or a train or something like that.
You need to shift gears.
You need to shift gears
and let them know you're shifting gears. JoJo's is a great example of this too.
Sure. You don't want to lose your audience, right? Because you're shifting the pacing. So
yeah. Hunter x Hunter is a great example of this.
Yeah. The freaking York New Arc, oh man.
We've been hearing about the Phantom Troop for 30 episodes, and now here we go. I remember when Kurapika's dealing with the cloak soldiers and stuff like that for training to being prepped to be the bodyguards and stuff, and I'm like, all right, this is
kind of fun,
And then suddenly, or not suddenly, they kind of started to realize, okay, this is actually happening. And every time the music would end for an episode, I would just be like, yes, let's go to the next one here.
Yeah, and that's another great example. Not just York New Arc compared to the other arcs surrounding it, because you could just say, well, those arcs weren't as good or whatever, right? But York New Arc compared to the Chimera Ant arc, completely almost alien levels of difference. Right? Both fantastic pacing. Completely, you almost couldn't get more different as far as pacing goes.
FMAB, for example, is really good overall, yet I don't love it passionately like I do other things, so I couldn't bear to call it a masterpiece. See, that's the thing. Just because someone calls something a masterpiece doesn't mean it's a masterpiece. So yeah, it's a great thing to know, what is a masterpiece for someone. Just it's good to find out.
The Last of the Mohicans movie has 100% on Rotten Tomatoes. That shouldn't be that way, but it is.
I know the book is better. The
movie is such a butchery of the characters and the story and everything. It's awful.
Oh man. Remember that ending song starting at the Meruem Komugi death scene? It was the worst thing to do. Why? Oh yeah. I just love anime with a start and end that goes all the way fluently like FMAB, and also like anime that just keeps going with different arcs like Hunter x Hunter.
Yep. They're completely different kinds of stories, and both are fantastic. To bring it back to Toradora and March Comes In Like a Lion, Toradora has a set story that's very clear that it's doing, and it does that, and it's over, and then it's done, right? And it's this great package. March Comes In Like a Lion, who knows when it'll end? I don't want it to ever end, right? But, both work.
Mesker 1. I remember Caleb angrily stopping the episode because of how tactless it felt to put that ending song there. Oh man, the feelings that Hunter x Hunter gave me at multiple points is crazy. Oh man.
I think the slowed pacing of masterpiece anime Llamas with Hats helped develop the lingering theme of nihilism and suppressed despair, a bubbling poison. Excellent.
Amiju, you are the quintessential troll in this chat. Oh my god.
No, stop. Yeah.
Oh, interesting. Matthew Bow. The bros made me more objective in my analysis of shows. I was a diehard Hunter x Hunter fan to the point I ignored its flaws. Now I recognize the flaws and love it despite them. See,
and that's true love.
See, I hope that people are still able to be passionate about their shows that they know have flaws in them. This is something that kind of not just triggers me, but it's something that it hurts me, like being vulnerable here a little bit, guys. Like, I really like RWBY. Like, for some reason, that's wrong. Like, I get it has flaws, y'all. Like, I get it has lots of flaws, but I really genuinely like RWBY. I also really genuinely like Monogatari. I really like My Hero Academia. I really like Hunter x Hunter. I really like a lot of shows. And there's so many people out there that look at the things you like and then go, well, wait, hold on. Like, why is it that you, as a semblance of sane human, a human being with a semblance of sanity, are able to say something right with regards to this show being so amazing, but something so objectively wrong with regards to this show's thing?
Your subjective opinion is objectively wrong.
Exactly. And here's the thing. We're talking about pacing as regards to something that we had a stance on, an opinion, a flavor, a taste on. And let's
face it, pacing...
That changed. That changed over time.
And also...
Like, even that, like, just the fact that it's not this immutable thing. Like... God, there might be a point. Like, I was telling someone this. I'm like, there might be a point where MHA just becomes a show I don't like anymore. Like, that could happen. Yeah. Just with these long-running shows and stuff like that. I feel like this is something that's important to understand, is that even this whole thing with regards to pacing and stuff like that, that's just our preference, our opinion, stuff like that. And even Jacob and I have very differing opinions on multiple shows with regards to
Domestic Girlfriend.
Exactly. So
or Haruhi,
or Haruhi.
Saying that in the same sentence leaves a bad taste in my mouth.
We can put ReZero in the middle there to fix it all up.
One question that I thought was really good and an easy answer.
Yes.
Is any show that you loved the potential of, but were very disappointed by the execution.
Oh.
And I think the obvious answer here is Heroes. That was a show.
They're talking about everything or just anime?
Well, okay, I guess if it's just anime, that's something different.
Heroes is a great example
just shows in general, I think Heroes is a fantastic example because the first season was fantastic. And the whole idea of like a superhero show and all of that stuff, and the way that they were doing it was great. But by the time that show ended, it was a mercy killing. Like, I'd been waiting, hoping kind of for that to happen. Either that it would die or that it would get better. Yeah. You know?
God, I don't know what anime... Because in a lot of ways, it's weird to say. And this feels... Don't take this the wrong way. But I only really watch good anime. like I'm kind of living...
Caleb, we're already doing a podcast on pacing. You can't get more, like, pretentious sounding than that.
No. I'm saying that basically, like, all the anime that I've watched recently, they're all good. They're all really good. Like, the only things that have been, like, potential-wise that just ended up being really bad is, like, Sword Art Online?
Oh, sure.
Sword Art Online had a lot of potential.
Yeah.
It did not go very well. It took, like, 2 episodes before it just went...
I'd say 3. Yeah, but...
Maybe 3.
Okay, yeah. Mirai Nikki. So you haven't seen this, Caleb.
I haven't seen that one, but I know the premise, basically.
Okay, the idea of people that have different levels of clairvoyance surrounding time. Pretty cool, right?
Yeah.
Surrounding space-time, basically.
Yeah.
Pretty cool. And then they have to do a death battle and do mind games with each other.
Stupid.
Well, no. But the thing is, it could still be good. But literally, like, everything else other than what people watch Mirai Nikki for, which is Yuno Gasai, everything other than that, like, it's like this one, like, sadistic bright spot with her background track and everything.
Okay.
But then everything else is this impressively bad show. Like, the side characters are so bad. The conflict is so bad. The main character is so bad.
Right.
Like,
so the potential was where?
Basically, just with the one best girl character that was in there.
Man. Yes, SAO Abridged is the only good SAO.
But it is a good SAO.
It is a really good SAO, yes, for sure. How well paced are the SOS discussion streams, etc.?
And we talked about how consistently pacing can be very important.
Yeah, I don't know how you guys
are
following this.
You guys have broken necks or neck braces because of all the whiplash. Yeah. You want great trash? Try Valkyrie Mermaid Drive or High School DxD. Oh boy.
Mm-hmm.
Oh boy.
Yeah. Is SOS a masterpiece?
The newer hot topic. Oh God.
Maybe amongst reaction channels.
I didn't realize SOS was bad until I started watching you, but it got me into anime. Okay, so here's the thing. Here's the thing.
That's great.
If you love SAO, you do you.
Yeah.
Because the thing is that there's like, I mean, come on. I've tried multiple times to rewatch Bleach, like, and sorry if you like Bleach, but the idea is that everyone likes different things, right?
Yes.
And if you love something, then you love that thing, and you proudly love that thing. Like, we're watching anime. There are so many people, less nowadays, but like there are so many people that would be like, anime, oh God, you know,
anime.
You guys are one of those people that watch all that tentacle porn and and whatnot with 2-dimensional anime waifus, like. So you love what you love, and you don't be ashamed of that. Like, if we personally don't like it because of different reasons, that's fine,
Yeah.
And especially if it was the first one you got into, then great. Like, I still cherish Bleach, even though I would never recommend for someone to watch it unless they basically really loved Fairy Tail and wanted something else. But the thing is that I'm still glad I watched it.
Right.
So yeah. Oni-chan.
Oh my gosh. Can anime be a masterpiece despite doing everything wrong? Because Garzy's wing is that exact. what is Garzy's wing?
So it's the one that's mentioned in the same sentence as the Ghost Stories dub.
Oh, the Ghost Stories dub is a great example of a masterpiece because they did everything intentionally wrong. Like, Jacob is like, I've seen nothing.
Well, the thing is that even then with Ghost Stories, there's a lot of points where they don't do all the jokes, or the jokes end up getting kind of cringy in my mind, or whole episodes where they haven't fully adjusted to the fact that they can say these things and be paid for it, right? But oh man, there's so much good stuff. What are you laughing at?
Just Garzy's wing is the room of anime. I'm just like imagining. I'm just imagining Tommy Wiseau as anime.
Drop the Krispy Kreme cervical.
Yes, it's not true. I did not hit her. I did not. Oh, hi, Mark.
There are so many quotes from Ghost Stories that I would love to say.
But Twitch TOS.
But Twitch TOS,
Jacob.
Twitch TOS. I can't. But the thing is, the Ghost Stories dub has so many amazing lines.
Yes, it does. It's beautiful.
Just watch the compilation, like, best of Ghost Stories videos if you want. Because boy,
this anime podcast has gotten way off topic here. But really here's the thing: it's all good. It's all food, as we discussed earlier. It's all food. So yeah.
I feel like you're like Aqua talking about like all breasts are good, flat, big, and padded like Eris.
Eris pats her chest. But man, absolutely. I wanna end this one on kind of a fun note in that y'all, like, there's so many shows out there that we've been moved by, we've had like great experiences with and stuff. But probably one of the funnest things about the whole experience of the channel has been that our opinions and tastes in anime have changed, evolved, and grown over the years. The thing about the community is that that's the thing that's just grown. It hasn't really changed. Like, we're all just still a bunch of goofy goobers and having fun here. But I've loved in a lot of ways how the whole experience interacting with you guys has grown and evolved and changed. So,
thank you, K-Fazzy. Thank you, Nintendo. Yes.
What?
Battle Lines. It's on Amazon. There are some signed copies there. Buy them. Leave reviews.
Appreciate it, K-Fazzy. Yeah.
Konosuba OVAs. I don't think so.
Oh wait, that's a copy pasta. Oh my god, that's a copy pasta. Ah! Wow. Wait, who started it? Who started it?
I'm hurt.
Okay, so I think K-Fazzy started it.
Yeah.
Or wait, was that from like a previous stream? It's okay, Jacob. They're being sincere.
Starting to copy pasta. Don't make me look like a clown.
Okay. Oh man. Yeah, Konosuba is great too.
Yep.
But yeah.
But yeah, so that's basically our podcast. We went all around. The pacing of this podcast was all sorts of
horrible.
Whack. You know, it was one of those
Could
things.
Not be considered a masterpiece.
Well, it was one of those things where we didn't really have a specific end goal in sight, so we sort of moseyed around.
That is true. So you could say actually the pacing was amazing. It was just rather slow.
Don't be hasty.
Don't be hasty.
Yeah.
Don't be hasty with the pacey.
What? What? Oh man.
All right, y'all. Love you all so much. Appreciate you hanging out with us.
It wasn't bad pacing. It was avant-garde.
Oh my god. But we're going to call things here.
Oh.
See you all in the next one. We've got our streams on Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday, all at 3 p.m. Pacific time. Tuesday, tomorrow, we're doing One Piece Volume 3,
Volume
y'all.
3. Hopefully we don't lose our voices.
PogChamp and chat for more One Piece ridiculous voices insanity. And then Thursday for more gaming with Jacob, and Friday for more gaming with myself. So, see you all in the next one. But until then, we're a semblance of sanity. I'm Caleb.
I'm Jacob.
And we'll see you all next time. But see, if we're going to truly close out this podcast,
then
here,
we need to talk about Domestic Girlfriend.
Clearly.
So y'all need to read the manga for Domestic Girlfriend.
The true masterpiece in Battle Lines' pacing with handling 6 main characters.
Okay,
just saying.
I don't want to set improper expectations. You think Battle Lines is a perfect story, but it does handle 6 characters and and it's got some great things.
Like the part at the end where the